Tonight, a man is shot dead in a drive-by attack in front of his newborn child.
You've got a 1-month-old baby who now doesn't have a father, and for what?
What we know about the city's latest murder and the search for the suspects. Plus,
our PSWs deserve our appreciation and respect. They're doing a heck of a job.
Personal support workers are getting a pay raise as the province grapples with the second wave of COVID-19. And City Council votes to move ahead with public consultations on renaming Dundas Street. Good evening, I'm Marivel Tarouk. We begin with breaking news from Mississauga, where 2 people have died in a collision. Police say they received a call at around 7:45 for reports of a 2-vehicle crash in the Bristol Road West and Segrave Drive area. That's near Eglinton and Terry Fox Way. A truck and another vehicle were involved in the crash. Police say the 2 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. Police also say at this point they have limited information about what just happened.
Our Major Collision Bureau is going to be processing the scene. They look at direction of travel, they look at road conditions, they look at weather. So all of that is going to be investigated at this point.
Police are urging anyone with information or dash cam video of the accident to contact them. The city's latest victim of gun violence was believed to be a man heading to the hospital with his partner and newborn baby. The shooting happened on a residential street near Jane and Lawrence just as the school day was beginning. Philip Lee Shannock has the details.
Orange cones marking shell casings tell the story of a morning ambush-style attack. Some residents who heard the shots thought it was the sound of roofers working in the neighborhood.
I heard 5 to 6 shots. But at the time, I'm not going to lie, I assumed it was the nail gun, and then I heard another 5 or 6.
Police say they were called by people reporting the sounds around 9 a.m. and found a man lying near a car with gunshot wounds.
Our male victim, who's 27 years old, was attending to his vehicle with his newborn baby. I believe it's a girl, and with a female companion, and we believe them to be a family unit at this point, and they were on their way to the hospital.
But police say before they could leave, 2 armed men opened fire, then drove away. Paramedics arrived and found the man in the street. Attempts to revive him failed. Police say the woman and baby were not injured in the gunfire.
The female victim obviously is a bit horrified, is extremely upset right now. She is with the baby, and they are currently being spoken to by investigators.
Police say it's too early in the investigation to say if this was a targeted attack. They also can't comment on earlier reports that there was an exchange of gunfire. Nevertheless, residents of this quiet neighborhood are shocked.
You've got a 1-month-old baby who now doesn't have a father, and for what? Like, what? Why? It's senseless.
Police say 3 schools in the area were ordered to lock their doors as a precaution.
It's tragic. It's horrific. Parents are at that time taking their children to school. People are going to work. People are exercising in the area. It's a very lovely neighborhood, and it's just not tolerable.
Police say 2 suspects fled in a 4-door sedan. Any witnesses are asked to call the Toronto Police Homicide Squad or Crime Stoppers. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
A mother has been charged in the death of her son who fell from an apartment window this summer. In late July, a 2-year-old boy fell from the 14th floor of this building near Driftwood and York Woods Gate. Police today say he had been sleeping inside but was left alone when a 31-year-old woman left the apartment for unknown reasons. While she was away, he fell. The woman has now been charged with criminal negligence causing death and not providing the necessaries of life. Toronto City Council has voted to hold public consultations on whether to rename Dundas Street. The consultation process is estimated to cost $250,000. The city decided to look into problematic street names in Toronto in response to a petition to rename Dundas Street. Angelina King has more on that and what a local business on Dundas Street has to say.
Wine and coffee bar Dundas and Carlaw has been called Dundas and Carlaw for 6 years. The new owners bought it just over a year ago and wish it was called something else.
We definitely stand behind all the movements to change the name. No matter the cost, this is kind of what we got to do to move forward.
It's time that we do look at our history.
The City Council voted to move forward with a public consultation process into renaming Dundas Street while learning more about the history and its impact.
We, as a collective body of members of council, are informed enough and are aware enough of all the challenges that people of BIPOC and people of Indigenous community are experiencing on a daily basis.
The street is named after Henry Dundas, who obstructed the abolition of slavery in the 1700s. Andrew Lougheed's petition has garnered more than 14,000 signatures.
Did you think it would get this far when you first started the petition?
No, I've been pleasantly surprised about this. I think given the circumstances and the impact that this name has, particularly on Black and Indigenous communities, it is a small price to pay for a movement towards healing and reconciliation.
The city is considering 4 renaming options. Do nothing, which is not recommended by city staff. Keep the name but add interpretation and recognitions. Keep it but rename other things like the park, library, and Young Dundas Square. Or rename everything with the word Dundas in it, including TTC routes.
We can do a lot of damage if we don't get it right. And as it stands, any of those 4 particular options that have been laid out will create somebody to be upset.
If the street is renamed, the city would be responsible for compensating businesses and residents who have to change their address.
It's going to cost us a lot of money as well, but it's for the right reasons.
Regardless what the city decides when it comes to the renaming, managers here say Dundas and Carlaw will be getting a new name just as soon as the pandemic is over and they have money for the rebranding. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Tents in city parks have been a common sight this year, put up by homeless people trying to avoid Toronto's crowded shelters. The city has been trying to remove the campsites, citing bylaw violations. And now their battle has made it to the courts. Lauren Pelly has that story.
For months, homeless Toronto residents have lived in city parks, all in colorful campsites like this. Trinity Bellwoods is now home to more than a dozen tents.
We're pretty spaced out.
Many staying in areas like this say they're safer here than in the crowded shelter system, where more than 600 COVID-19 cases have been reported.
It can be difficult to implement social distancing when you're in a shelter.
While many encampment residents want to stay put, city officials want them out. A group of homeless residents fought back in court today, seeking an interim order to allow them to remain in their tents. The key issue? A local bylaw banning camping or living in parks after midnight.
Parks bylaw and city parks are for everybody. It's not appropriate to be camping in park.
In court filings, the city maintains the Charter of Rights and Freedoms does not entitle the group to live in these public spaces. The city also alleges the sites remain unsafe with incidents of violence, human trafficking, and fires, issues other neighborhood residents have noticed.
I've seen fights, I've seen arguments, I've seen garbage, I've seen drug use.
In its court filing, the city alleges more than 10,000 used needles were collected by staff this summer.
It is safer to be inside where you have access to water, where you have access to facilities like washrooms and showers. And in fact, the services that we provide include meals and wraparound health services.
Meanwhile, a lawyer representing the group tweeted, part of their argument is the city should continue to offer shelter options since some are looking for suitable accommodation, while others will stay in encampments, he says, so protect and respect their rights. Now, I'm told it could be a few weeks before the judge's decision, so in the meantime, anyone living in these encampments will get to stay. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
For the 4th straight day, Ontario is reporting more than 500 new cases of COVID-19. The count today is 538. Some on the front lines of the pandemic will now receive a pay increase. Personal support workers will earn between $2 and $3 more per hour. But as Lorenda Redekop explains, a union representing the caregivers is disappointed because that pay hike is temporary.
We're making a landmark investment of $461 million to help stabilize our PSW workforce.
It's an extra $3 an hour for most personal support workers on the front lines during this pandemic. $2 an hour more for those working in hospitals, where pay is already higher. And just like the pandemic pay that ran out in mid-August, it's temporary, only until the end of March, at least so far.
When it comes around to March, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure this is full-time. They deserve it. They're hard-working folks, and I have your backs.
A union for PSWs says this should already be permanent.
How can you value personal support workers for 5 months at a time? And they are actually feeling quite insulted about that they are valued when their life's at risk, but not every day of their lives.
It needs to be permanent. It needs to be a permanent increase in the pay that these folks are getting. They need to be guaranteed full-time jobs.
This comes as seniors are making up a larger percentage of new cases. In today's numbers, 25 are aged 80 and up, and 42 long-term care homes are now dealing with an outbreak.
Community transmission is wildly out of control right now. The greatest risk factor for whether a home's going to go into outbreak is the community prevalence of COVID-19. If we can't get the community prevalence under control, we're going to see more outbreaks and we're going to see more deaths.
And he says the huge backlog on processing tests is only adding to the problem.
There's a lot of positive cases that are waiting to be reported. And not only that, they're waiting to be contact traced as well. And they're often the community spreading COVID-19. So, it's an extremely alarming situation.
He says the test positivity rate for seniors is rising, along with hospitalizations. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
We're getting new numbers from the TDSB tonight concerning how many elementary school students will be making the switch to online learning after less than a month of classes. A spokesperson tells us approximately 7,500 kids will leave the classroom and learn virtually. Meanwhile, 3,000 students opted to close their laptops and head back to class in person. The change takes effect just after Thanksgiving. Secondary school students in the board have until October 15th to request a change. The province has updated its guidelines for screening children for COVID-19. There are now 2 sets of questions about symptoms.
The first set of questions asks about symptoms such as fever or persistent cough. Students and children with these symptoms or any of the symptoms in that list will still be advised to stay home until they are able to consult with a healthcare provider and receive an alternative diagnosis or a negative COVID-19 test.
The second set of questions asks about symptoms such as a runny nose or headache, which can be associated with other illnesses. Children with only one of these symptoms are advised to stay home for 24 hours. They can then return to school if the symptoms improve. Students with 2 or more of these symptoms are advised to stay home and consult a healthcare provider or get a COVID-19 test. Officials have also removed abdominal pain and pink eye from the list of COVID-19 symptoms. A joint investigation into illegal street racing across the GTA has resulted in multiple arrests and a long list of charges. Project Drift is made up of officers from Peel, York, and Toronto, as well as the OPP.
As of June 2020, we had an increase of 128% in stunt driving related charges.
Videos of illegal gatherings and drivers burning rubber were shown at today's news conference. Some brazen stunt drivers have gone so far as to organize large rallies with swarms of people shutting down roads. This video from Scarborough shows police trying to break up a rally, but the crowd blocks the police car, allowing stunt drivers to escape. So far, police have arrested 6 men they say are involved with stunt driving organizations. They are facing a total of 40 charges. It was brief but powerful, and it is now confirmed that a tornado we first reported last night touched down near Hamilton. An assessment team confirming today the storm that slammed into a Flamborough farm around 4:30 Wednesday afternoon was in fact a tornado. The winds were powerful enough to tip over a truck, snap a tree, and tear part of the roof off a barn. The twister has been rated an EF1, which can have maximum winds of 150 kilometers an hour.
He would want to be remembered as an advocate for those Indigenous people.
One of the first ever Crown attorneys at the Indigenous Court at Old City Hall has died. Coming up, we'll hear from the family of Fred Bartley and what they hope will come of his legacy. Cool evening out there tonight. Colette's here with the forecast. It feels like fall temperatures are really beginning to settle in, Colette.
Thanks, Marivelle. Well, we knew it was coming and it is upon us. Basically, this kick of the next wave of cooler air that's moving in. So yes, this cold front is going to move through, but you know, behind it, we don't really clear things out because there's a trough that's going to keep some of the instability in place. So Yeah, there's a significant drop in temperatures, and I don't just mean with the daytime highs. We're going to see some cooler overnight lows. Not so bad tonight. It's got to work its way through, but we're really going to be feeling it Friday night and even Saturday night kind of cool as we go into the weekend. Still unsettled conditions then, so still that chance of those pop-up showers. We'll be seeing that carrying on. It does look good in terms of the temperatures with the rebound, because I know that's always a question. All right, if colder air is moving in, Colette, when's it going to warm back up again? It starts to warm back up on Monday, but really the rebound comes in earnest by the time we get into Tuesday. So some of the daytime temperatures today, really the story was where you had more sunshine. Obviously, you did a little bit better with the temperatures. And in some cases, things were feeling pretty good. And then if some of the rain started to bubble up, then those temperatures kind of crashed back down again. So that was the story. We had some of those heavier rains kind of showing up along the north shore of Lake Erie, some of those areas where you got some thunderstorms coming right back in again. So we have some instability not only tonight, we're going to be seeing that tomorrow. So quite a bit of cloud cover coming back in again, scattered showers developing. And as that cold front works its way through, those temperatures taking a dive. So daytime highs tomorrow going to be much cooler than what I was just showing you with some of the areas today. So we're not talking about those highs going into the upper teens. We're talking about, in some cases, maybe not even getting a teen into your daytime high. Into Saturday, not as many areas will be experiencing the wet conditions, so we'll be seeing more of a mix of sun and cloud. I know you can see still some of the lake effect coming off of parts of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, and getting some of the effects too there around Lake Erie. But more areas on Saturday will be dry than not, so that's good, because for the second half of the weekend into Sunday, not necessarily going to be the case. Overnight tonight, you can feel the cooler effects already into southwestern Ontario. It will take its time, though, to work over towards eastern Ontario. That's why I say it'll be more like Friday night into Saturday for those regions. But that's what it looks like tonight for you guys. And this is what it looks like for your daytime highs. 30 to 60% chance, because it's a less of a chance towards the Windsor area, more of a chance towards London tonight. Overnight for the Golden Horseshoe. Here's how it looks tomorrow afternoon, 12, 13 degrees for those daytime highs. Cool right through the weekend. There you go, though. Monday, I got to give you the hope, right? As we go towards Tuesday, that's when we're going to see that heat coming back in, even a little bit above seasonal.
Well, hang on for Monday then. Thanks, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
The man instrumental in setting up the Indigenous courts at Old City Hall and in Scarborough died suddenly this week. Fred Bartley was a member of the Serpentine River First Nation and a mentor to many in the community. His work to humanize the justice system for Indigenous people set him apart from his peers. Farah Morali has more on how he's being remembered.
These old photographs tell the story of Fred Bartley, the husband and father.
So Fred and I met downtown Toronto by a mutual friend in 2001. And 10 months later, we were married. We knew we were meant for each other.
Instead of planning his birthday this week, his family is planning his funeral.
For me, he was always just a giant teddy bear, honestly. I spent a lot of time with him because he loved hockey. I played hockey. He always drove me. He was always happy.
My dad was like my best friend to me. He was like just a bundle of joy all the time. He was always there for me.
Fred Bartley was Anishinaabe and a proud member of the Serpentine River Nation. He was one of the first Crown attorneys to work at the Gladue Court at Old City Hall when it opened back in 2001. It's a specialized court, similar to this one in Nova Scotia, created to address overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the justice system. It considers what they've endured, cultural oppression, poverty, and abuse suffered at residential schools, and their unique circumstances.
If it wasn't for Fred's participation in our committees and in the court itself, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Shauna Kelly worked on the opposite side of Bartley as a defense lawyer.
You know, we oftentimes look at docket numbers. We call cases by numbers. We look at the the factors of the case, not the individuals before the court. Fred brought something that was humanistic, something personal to the courtroom.
It's a big loss. It's a big loss. Like it's really important that we have that type of role model in the Crown Attorney system.
Bartley helped Betty Vivugios, his friend of 20 years, set up a Glad You court in Scarborough.
He was a mentor to many young people, I know. I think I know that he did a lot of, I think it was for homeless people. He did one of the organizations. He gave his time to that. He was constantly giving.
He always said he loves his job because he feels that he's keeping the streets safe for us. He would want to be remembered as an advocate for those Indigenous people.
Fred Bartley died suddenly of complications related to liver disease on Sunday morning. He would have turned 53 yesterday. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, showcasing art while respecting public health guidelines. We'll take you to the malting silos at the foot of Bathurst Street, the latest site of the city's Big Art TO initiative. That's coming up. Last month, the city announced Big Art TO, an initiative to turn local landmarks and buildings into giant canvases to show love to local artists. Tonight, the malting silos at the foot of Bathurst Street were transformed. This is the work of Toronto artist Erica de Freitas. You can check out more of her creations. They'll be projected on the silos for the next 2 nights. A bonus tonight was getting a glimpse of this beautiful moon. You can catch the next installation next Wednesday in Christie Pitts Park. Pretty cool. That's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.